Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Kate. I'm the co-yoga director at YogaRenew, and I'm here with Lindsay, who is going to be interviewing me, right? We're gonna have a conversation.
Yeah, we're gonna talk to each other.
About the business of yoga. So the business of yoga is one of my absolute favorite topics to teach on. I think as yoga teachers, being able to talk about how we can share what we do with more people is a key thing in order to be able to increase impact and get more people around the world practicing yoga. And so that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, great. So Kate, what would you say if somebody is looking to get started teaching yoga, what do they have to do? How do you start, right? Like what is the first step?
Step one, after you graduate.
Yeah, so you graduate yoga teacher training and then
what? Dot.
Yeah.
So for the purposes of this, I'm going to focus on talking about teaching in-person classes. So obviously the pandemic has created many opportunities for us to show up and teach online, on Zoom, and all of those things. And I think that there's like separate things that go into that. So we'll create a separate video. But for this, talking about like if you want to teach in a studio or in a community center or at a gym. So a couple key things once you graduate from training that I think I always like to tell new teachers as tips. The first one is to start to figure out what your ideal teaching setup is. Some people really have been athletes in the past and they love going to the gym, and then they do a teacher training and they want to work with people who are really into lifting weights and things like that, and also want to bring yoga to that community, right? And so teaching in a gym would be their absolute ideal. Other people might be much more interested in the philosophy and the meditation aspects of yoga and working with the breath, and so maybe a studio environment would be a better setup for that. A studio that might offer some more of that, the ties to the philosophy and the opportunities to teach that. Or maybe you're someone that like knows you want to work one-on-one, or you want to share yoga in your community in a greater capacity and teach free classes and bring people. So I think it's first starting to figure out, okay, what is your ideal situation? And then how do you integrate yourself as a member or as a student into that situation?
Yeah.
So for example, if you want to teach in a yoga studio, you should go to that yoga studio. And I know that sounds like a very basic and silly tip, but as a studio owner, I can't tell you how many blind resumes we got or emails from yoga teachers like, hey, here's my yoga resume. I just graduated from teacher training. I'd like to teach at your studio. Let me know if you're hiring. And it's like, we've never met you, you've never walked in, you didn't take the time to figure out if our studio is a good fit for you, right? For you as a teacher. Do you have something to offer to our students? Do we have the way to support you and put you in the best position? And so truthfully, a lot of those emails just got pushed aside. And so I think if you're interested in teaching at a studio, go, take classes, explore it. Test it out, get an idea of what the community is like, and then start to become part of that community. And I think that's true at a studio, at a gym, at a community center. How do you make yourself part of that community first? And I think that's the first step, is integrating yourself there. And then from there, it becomes just having a conversation with the person in charge of setting up yoga classes. If it's a studio, maybe it's the yoga director or studio owner, being able to say like, hey, do you have opportunities to get onto your sub list, right? If it's at the gym, talking to the manager and saying, how do people get to teach group fitness classes? If it's at a community center, who's in charge of booking events, having a conversation with them. So it's, my first thing is become part of the community that you want to teach in, and then have a conversation about the next steps forward.
Yeah. And I think even to that point, like I think a step before that is like figure out what you want to teach, right? Like what you had mentioned, like
for sure.
I think that's really important, because I think, you know, you graduate yoga teacher training and you have all this new information of a million new ideas but I think what really differentiates one yoga teacher from the other is knowing that person has done that practice, right? So in my example, my practice a lot of the times is like child's pose and like shavasana, like that. I'm like, yoga's done for the day, right? So I'm not gonna go out and seek to teach in a gym or like a really physically fitness focused type of practice, because that's not what I do in my own practice, right? And for Kate, it's different, right? She teaches a more active practice, so that's what she practices a more active practice, so that's what she teaches. So I think the first step is like, teach what you practice. Teach what you know, what feels good in your body, and don't feel the pressure of, oh, I need to teach crow pose because they said I should, but if you haven't mastered it, right, if you don't feel good about it in your body and how to get yourself into it, it's going to be much harder for you to help other people find that shape or find whatever practice it is. So I think practice and just like know what you feel good about and what feels good and right in your body, and then it's going to be much easier to get in front of a class or a studio or, you know, find a place to practice when you're sure of what you're offering.
Love that. So if we have to walk it back, it would be to learn what you want to teach. So teach what you practice, find the right environment for those classes, and then integrate yourself and become part of that environment and try to get started that way. Not to counteract everything that we just said, but the other tip that I have for new teachers though is I think that it's good to like set your ideal and to try to make that happen. But I also think that if you want to teach, you have to just say yes to any opportunities that come your way. So for example, I knew for me, I do like to teach an active class. I also do teach yin classes and things like that because I'm very interested in a lot of the mental health aspects and reasons people come to yoga, but I do teach a more active practice. And I knew I wanted to teach at a studio ideally because I liked the hybrid of both, and I liked people who, even in active practice, wanted to get into some of the deeper layers of yoga. That being said, when I was first teaching, I only had the opportunity to really teach like 1 or 2 classes at a studio, and I was very fortunate even to be able to do that right away. But if I wanted to teach full time, I had to say yes to other opportunities. So I taught at fitness studios and gyms, which weren't for me my ideal, but it gave me the opportunity to just get some experience and to teach. And I think even though I didn't stay in that environment forever, I learned things by serving those different populations. And I figured out how to break classes down in language that makes it easier, I think, for people to learn from. Like I've had people take even my more active classes who are pretty new to yoga, and a lot of times the feedback I get is like, I'm new to this, but I still felt like I could follow along. And I think that's from the amount of time that I like took to try teaching like brand new beginners and go to a fitness studio and go, you know, to I actually taught at like a smoothie shop where it was like a free class that people were just like coming in to take before having a smoothie. Like I taught in like a lot of different types of places, and I learned a lot from those experiences that then when I was able to really round my schedule out into my ideal environment, I had a lot of knowledge that I was able to apply for there. So I think just gaining teaching experience, even if you're like, this isn't my dream place forever and ever, you can still show up, you can still serve those students, and those students can still teach you something as well.
Yeah, and to that point too, I think also like not being afraid at first not to make money, right? Like, you know, teach
taught
your
so many free classes.
Yeah, teach your free class, teach something in the park, teach your cousins, your friends, your schoolmates, your parents, whoever you can, you know, get your hands on. Yeah, just teach, just get out there and start doing it. And that will just give you the confidence that you need if you do have to like audition at a studio or in a space. It's, you know, the worst feeling, and I had this feeling because my first yoga audition was horrible, horrendous, like really bad, and it was because I hadn't really been teaching other people enough, right? So I think to that point, just like practice teaching whoever it is, even if it's a 20-minute little practice with your friend before you guys go to the gym together or whatever you're doing, just like get in the habit of starting to teach, and it'll start to flow a bit more easily when you have opportunities to teach in a studio or in your ideal dream environment. Once you have that practice under your belt with different age groups and different body types and populations, it's going to just enhance your teaching abilities. So.
So to sum up, for new teachers, I think our key tips would be teach what you practice, right? Do what you actually know how to do and share that with students. Find an environment that caters to that would be your ideal place to offer your teachings to students. Integrate yourself into that community, into the environment, and while all of that is happening, just say yes to every opportunity that you have that comes your way, to just start teaching, to start serving, to start sharing. And in time, as you gain more experience, you'll be able to set up something that feels more ideal for you.
Great. Yeah, and I think I was supposed to interview Kate, but I feel like she's great at just wrapping a bow on things at the end. So thank you all so much for joining us. I hope that this video was helpful for you, and be sure to subscribe to our channel for more tips like this. Take care.